Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to another new session. We're going to work on Notula. I have done a couple of things in the past few weeks. First of all, I have been trying to figure out the whole OAuth 2 situation and how that would work. And I've come to the conclusion that setting up your OAuth 2 authorization server is a bit overkill for the project we're doing because you don't want other applications to log in with our server. It's just for this application anyway. So what I am going to do is, and I'm not sure if I still have it somewhere and whether I have it prepared or not, but the idea is that I don't even know which code actually still is required or not. So I'm not going to set up any of the authorization part, and I'm just going to set up like a consuming part. And why is this not properly formatted? What's my format? Control Shift I. Okay. So so that's what I'm gonna do. So normally what you would see here is that indeed you have like a resource server setup which will consume my JOT, but there is no well, this of course is still wrong, but that's okay. But there would be no part that actually says like, oh yeah, Spring will generate for me the token, or will do the whole flow, the OAuth flow and whatever. None of that. So instead, I'm going to do that all myself. So you would have the session controller. Six. So you would have the session controller where you get in, you request a new session, and then yeah, instead of you saying okay, here as well, the session info. This would or should not be session info. Um, which is interesting. Anyway, so the session info, so you create a new session. A session, of course, does store some data. So it will store the refresh token, which also gets stored until when it's active. But it does not store, of course, it doesn't store your actual JOT token because your contain information like this. Organization ID still needs to be added, but that's done for later. But so yeah, so that's is all now going to be my responsibility. And then you would have, well, this is still like very old code and doesn't really matter and doesn't really do what it wants. But you would have a JWT service where you actually generate your token, which currently all commented out because it contains compile errors and then it would be wrong. So then you have your access token, which will expire in like 30 minutes every time. You have a refresh token, which expires after 7 days. You have a secret key, which is being provided by my config, the web security config here, I think, the JWT secret key. I'm not sure if I actually need this. I'll have to look into that. JWT decoder. Because this works in a different way. I think that might be for consuming for the for Spring itself. I'll have to look into that. That's for later. But so I was first working on actually getting like, also you have the service, which actually doesn't do anything. But of course, you start at the bottom in the repository. Now, the problem is that my VS Code doesn't really seem to work very well because like it doesn't do anything if I go to test, even though there is a test. Another issue that I'm having is that the Java version, as you can see, that is installed, is a bit outdated. From Debian 6 to Debian 7, and by that I mean Linux Mint Debian Edition 6 to Linux Mint Debian Edition 7, so from Fay to Gigi. But that went horribly wrong because my driver didn't work anymore, screen went black, so I had to go back to version 6. And then of course I lost everything, so I still have to install OpenJDK25 then, and I have to configure it. But I'm not so sure if that's really the cause. Could be, but maybe not, because on my laptop I have the exact same issue that my VS Code, like it doesn't find any tests and doesn't do anything. So it's really odd. Haven't really seen this before, but oh well. We'll see what we can do about it. For the time being, I think we should just try to do what we can do. I was really hoping I actually could run my tests, because this should normally save everything. Everything should have been tested, should have been added. Then the storage gateway. The storage gateway was an interesting one. And I think initially here I had, because I, again, in my session, same with my account creation, I have a session login, I have a session info, and initially I had my storage gateway that actually took in like a login. But then I was like, what doesn't actually make sense? Why would a session, why, if you want to create a session, you would give in a session login? You have to give the information that it actually requires to create a session. And the session login doesn't contain any of that. It just contains your email and password. It's up to the session service to say like, okay, well, do you want to log in with this? Does the user exist? So this would use then the user service to see like, yeah, doesn't a user like that exist? Give me the user, or give me the user. And if it does not exist, yeah, then whatever. Then there would be some authentication on the passwords. I'm actually not sure the user service does already some type of nope. So currently there is just some and that actually is the storage gateway that does it. Yes, it's a storage gateway that actually encodes and decodes the passwords. So that is going to be an interesting question as well. So what are we going to do? Are we going to... So then it's the storage gateway that basically becomes responsible for checking the password as well. Interesting, interesting. But so is the service that then is responsible to actually take the session login, which is the request you make, and verifies the user exists and the credentials match. And honestly, I always have felt that no matter whether the email address, because okay, let's go to the test. Is there already? Yes, it's already a test. Okay, so what do we first have? First, of course, you have a null request, which should give a null pointer exception. Then you actually have a email does not exist, so not registered. Then you give again, I would say a bad request exception or something. If you then say password incorrect, then same as well, bad request. I don't want to differentiate. Sometimes you see it when people log in that you say like, oh, your password is not match, or oh, nobody signed up with this email address. I feel like that's exposing too much information, because that means that I can try emails and see who has an account at a certain platform, and then as soon as I know he has an account, I try to like try passwords that maybe have been leaked from him. So yeah, I don't like that one. So if the email doesn't exist, then bad request. If the password is incorrect, bad request. If it's success, then it is created session and returns tokens. And that's about it. As far as I'm aware, this should do. So the session info is not going to be correct. I'm just not sure whether this should be, whether I should have like a tokens endpoint, or whether I should have something else, like session tokens or something. Yeah, maybe I should have session tokens. The question is, does that only contain the tokens? Maybe it does. Why not? I mean, like, does it really matter that you have all of this? You don't care. I mean, say, create me a session. Okay, if you create me a session, here's your access token, here's your refresh token, period. So it is a bit weird how this would work, because normally you wouldn't do this. You would say like create me an object A, and then it gives you A back, but then the create version of it. So how the whole user with the login and the sessions are a bit different, but I get a feeling that authentication is quite different from the other parts. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It is just how it is, I guess. So yeah. Uh, okay, so I guess before we can actually do this, well, we can implement part of it. Let's do some of it. The annoying thing is that I can't run any of my tests. Void login null. Normally I would actually keep my exceptions last, but so that's thrown by. Okay, why am I not getting? Why is my AI not filling in? So this is that's because it's also not injected yet. So this would become a session storage. I don't think I need the authentication. I'm not sure if I need the authentication manager. Like, I'm gonna leave it out for now, simply because I don't know whether I'm gonna need it or not. Because I think most of the authentication stuff here was with the old about 2 flow, and I don't think I still need it. Add Mockito Beam, private session storage gateway, yes, and then I have a private final session service. Okay, that's all fine. Session service does create null. This instance of no pointer exception, yes. And normally I would now run the tests, but VS Code is having issues, and that could be because my JDK is not up to date. Could also be because of other issues. I'll have to. What the hell is going on here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Who wants the formatting like that? Why is session service okay? Oh no! God damn it! Who has wrapping on? Why would I ever want to do that? Why would I ever want to have line wrapping on? How do I turn it off? I probably okay. I have to copy my user. Oh, that's a bit weird. My user session should be stored. My user preferences have not been gone. Line wrap. Word wrap is off. Wrapping isn't same. Word wrap. Oh, I have to word wrap column. Word wrap. Word wrap is off. I'll have to figure this out to avoid this, because this is not. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, it's just a pure visual thing, but this is just horrible. And that's why 80 characters is what you should go with, nothing more, nothing less, so you can have something next to it as well. Okay, so it's my login null. This test normally now would fail. It's annoying, I can't. And then everything else actually does require the, well, not even session storage gateway. I will need the user service as well, and I will need the JWT service as well. User service, yes, should we do the same thing? Okay. And so this is actually one of the parts where I think that it's important that your services do talk in videos, because my user service, if it would have if it would accept, well, not a create user, but if it here accepts like some DAO, then I have to create a DAO. Now, of course, the session login and user login is the exact same thing, so maybe I should just use the same object for it. The thing is that there is semantically there is a tiny difference in that sense, that in the one aspect you say like I want to create this user login, and now it's like I actually want to log in with these credentials. Of course, if you say I want to create this user, and then you say like I want to update this user or get this user, I want to do something with this user, and it's still the same user. But yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a bit overkill to have two different objects for it. I think it's better that it just becomes the same one. So, but that will become a important part as well. So apparently the compiler that comes with it can still do certain useful things. Oh, and so an interesting thing as well, like because now we depend on the user service, which is not a problem at all. It's perfectly fine to depend on the user service because it's public. But the user storage, for instance, this I could, for instance, say like, well, you know, I don't like this. I'm gonna make this protected, or not even protected. I'm gonna make it a class scope visibility, so nobody can actually see it. I'm not sure if Spring still allows it. That's something I will have to try out. But so this allows you to actually say like, it's really not meant to be used by anyone else or outside of this package. This is closed to this package, to the user package. If you use modules, then you can even restrict it even further and do something stuff more. Same for the controller. Maybe you don't want access to the controller, and if Spring can handle it with this being package controlled, then you can also lock this down a bit. Repository even more. Repository should not be used outside of it as well. So the only thing you actually could expose anything in the actual service. So then if you want to have people use it, again, you can only use the service. And that's a very nice thing. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying by structuring your packages in such a way, or your code in such a way that you actually have domain packages, you can do it. Session, sorry, that's fine. Session controller, we're gonna close the session service. So here we were looking at session service. So now I have to here say user service and JWT service. And yes, that's it. So then I probably want to say like, you would want to do something like user service dot exists, and then def request, or maybe a find by login or something. And this would be an optional user info, I assume. Okay, note, this will move when we have organizations. No, it will not. It will not move, but there will be an extra step. Because if you log in, then yeah, you're going to log in with your credentials, but then you probably want to do like a separate thing, as in like which organization I actually want to log in. So you have to look up which organizations are you part of. If there is only one organization, you probably want to log into that organization automatically. If you're part of multiple organizations, maybe you want the default one. That's a bit of a whole different thing, but it will be fine. So of course this doesn't exist, so we're going to leave this out. And of course I should do like an objects non-null require non-null request. So this will make this test pass. I am certain of it. And then the biggest part now, I guess, also becomes the JWT service, trying to figure out what is wrong with it. But I don't think I already have a JWT service test. So typically when I do the whole test-driven development, you will often see like you start with like, oh, I need a controller. Okay. So you start writing tests for your controller, and then like, oh, actually, you have to make it really work. I need the service. Okay, service. Yeah, but yeah, I need to save it somewhere. So if it's really new code, you can often lead to like, oh, you create something, you write tests for it, and then like, yeah, but actually to make this work, I need the next thing. And then with mocking, you can do it. For instance, I think if you would look at my session controller, this is a fully okay, I don't know what this is, but this would be fully or should be functional, fully functional tests. The only thing is I wasn't sure yet, like what you actually want to return, how you want to return it. Now I know about cookies and whatever and how you should do it. So that's one thing. But for instance, here as well, the service. I mean, I could perfectly write tests for all my services. And actual find by login does not have to be implemented. It just has to exist so the compiler is happy. This can just return whatever because I'm going to mock this anyway. So I can fully write my actual session service, which it's not gonna, well, it will work. The session service itself, this method will work and it does what it should be doing. The thing is that the things it depends on don't work yet. And that's not really a necessity. Of course, you can say like, well, should I already then commit it? Should I already merge it? Should I like, because it doesn't even work yet? Maybe not. So in the beginning, you definitely, if you know, then you definitely might have this issue and saying like, yeah, but I'm going down this rabbit hole. I've created something. I can't finish my testing for it because it depends on something else, and I have to create that, and I have to do the test for that, and but that's all perfectly fine. I mean, eventually you will learn to understand that you can do because this is a top-down approach. Basically, you start the controller, you go all the way down to the repository with all the dependencies you have, and do it all along the way. But eventually, you also might start to know more how to do things. I mean, like for something that's completely new, this is definitely a perfect approach. It just means that you don't have anything that's fully ready until the end. Although along the way, everything you have written will work with your current understanding, with what you have expected so far. But so for things that you know, like are more basic, more standard, it's very easy to actually do a top-down, a bottom-up approach, where you start at your repository. Like, okay, I will need to have a method where I can find it. I need to have a method where I can do this. I need to have a method where I can do that. Okay, so I'll write the method in my repository. Okay, this works. It's not being used anywhere, but it works. And then you build your service on top of it, or in my case, would be the storage gateway. You build a storage gateway on top of that. Okay, there you have the whole, well, and that's where it starts first. Okay, I have the mapping from a BDO. Okay, so you need to have the BDO. Again, you could first start with just creating your BDO, your actual objects, and then the DOs and the mappings to all of those. You can really do how you want it to do and be very flexible. The main part is that, or the important part is that actually as soon as you start writing some code, you first write a test so that your code, you can always just commit it, push it, it will work, it will compile. In my case, this is not the case. Well, that's why I have commented out code, I guess. But so that's the theory. This does not work very well, and I will admit that it does not work very well with with like more experimental things where you're just trying out things and you don't really know how things are related yet and how they should interact, then it can be a bit difficult that you say like, yeah, well, I don't even know what my interface is going to be. Like, what do I want this method to return? I don't know what I'm really going to need. And so then it can be sometimes a bit more trickier, but still, I mean, by writing a test, you at least already think about it. For instance, here my JWT service, I say I'm going to add nested. And then what am I going to need? Well, I will definitely need a method to say create tokens. Well, create tokens, that's something I was also mixed up because my session service says just create, because it's like create me a session. Makes sense. But my user service has create user, which, I mean, you're a user service. What else are you going to create besides a user? So I think I'm going to go for the regular create. Now a JWT service is a bit weird. You say like create on a jot. I mean, so maybe this should be renamed. So maybe it should be like session tokens service or token service. A token service. So the thing is also like in this is where it might fall down because this is create, but what about refresh? You would have just a method called refresh. I don't know. Validate, I don't think I really have to validate it myself, which is a bit weird because normally you would validate it yourself, but I think that this is what Spring will do by being the resource service. But that remains to be seen and still has to be tested. I have a lot of code that I have written down in places. But yeah, okay. So currently there will be no refresh. I'm not going to implement the refresh yet. I think it might already be here somewhere. The refresh tokens. Don't care. But so I'm definitely going to do a create. At test. And then I would have, again, say a, well, currently user null. Well, is it user or am I going to give a session? Maybe I'm just going to give a session. I think a session might be better. Then again here, assert that thrown by. And then of course I have to inject it here first. I have to say private final JWT. Of course does not exist. I say an add mock. I don't have to do a mock because that's, what the hell is secret key? Is that a bean? I think that is a bean, no? Yes. So add mockito bean, I guess. Private secret key. Secret key. And then here I would say, how come this works? Because this is wrong. This should be test. Okay, that makes sense. And then secret key. So now this is happy, assert that, thrown by, secret, not secret key, JWT service, create null. And now it's complaining because the method doesn't exist yet. So here you have a public void create with session info, and I do a nothing. Create JWT service. I'm pretty sure I just created it. Okay, now created. I can't run the tests. This will still fail the tests. Why? Because I have not written this. Object require objects require non-null session. And normally, but my session info still has to be tested as well. So I'm doing it a bit funky, a bit weird, because normally I should have tested the object already. But I was very experimental in this as well. So create, okay, and that's it in this method. Now works. Doesn't work because you actually have to do all of this, and those are private methods. Before I forget, I'm gonna go to the session info. Yes, sorry for being so chaotic. That's just part of its user login test. That doesn't exist anymore. This should now be session login test. And as we discussed earlier, this method is just, this will be gone. So new file, session test.java. Okay. And what do we have? We have add constructor. Well, add nested, but we are just gonna do class constructor. Yes, indeed. And then we do add test. And then yeah, avoid success. And I say private. I'm gonna do a private final test session. Just gonna take one. This one is a valid session. Yes, okay, that's okay. So then here I can just say like create me a session with get ID session dot get user ID. Then I have the session dot refresh token. I'm still not certain whether I want to keep this as an enum record class or just a regular class. An enum is nicer because you don't have to do the getter. Well, no, a record class is nice because you don't have to do the getter. Test user, I think we had the assert equals, yes. Okay, so that I will add that as well in the here. I'll say public void assert equals on the final session info. Insert that session get ID dot equals ID session user dot is equal to sometimes AI can make life more challenging than what it should be. And this is the interesting part because I'm pretty sure, and I'm still not sure whether I like it. Get active until this is an offset date time. It should be the exact same time is equal to, because you also have like other methods, but I think an exact is equal to will be fine. So then here I can just say session dot assert equals session info. This actually does seem very weird. Have I done the same for a user info? How come my user info doesn't have tests? Go to test, user info. My user login has a test. My user info does not have a test. This is not good. This is not good. That I'll need to fix. Okay, for the login I didn't do it. Why? Because why did I not do it? I have it here as well. Find the references. I think I was doubting whether I should have these methods or not. Because in the end, you only use it once. Yes, so maybe let's not do it. It also makes it a bit more explicitly clear what we're actually checking. Why is he complaining? Private final, static. Fine. So that's a success, and I say here at test void is this actually already used somewhere? No. Then what is my DTO doing? To video return new session login. Ah, yes, with the session info. Ah, yes, the session info. I will again never create a session without ID. It's the same as my user info. And I think my user info, this code is also long with a capital L. And I did say you could create a session. Okay, no, the references are just messed up. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure user info is used. Why are these also not? Are they not fine? Oh, I'm sorry, but the ID should definitely be. What have I been doing here? The ID should definitely have been final. User storage gateway, I think. Create user DAO, created, save, yes. He creates user info, created, user DAO, yes, to video. Because technically this this DAO can be a null because you can create him without it. Yeah, honestly, I don't care because in this case, it's not going to work as well as, I mean, like here as well. You're never going to create a session info. Actually, in this case, you will. You will create one without ID. A user not because you'll create him through the login, but a session, you probably create a session info yourself and then store it. The user is even more messed up because here you don't have a password on the user info, whereas the user login has. But so here, to do ID final and non null. So non-nullable by just saying it's long, it becomes non-nullable. That's what I mean with it. To do tests, important. So, but so this is like with ID, and then we have without ID. Although I think I technically will move this one forwards, up. So voila. And then this is also a to do. And then here we can say what can be made null. With ID null, maybe. That is also perfectly fine. Fine. Doesn't matter. But I like to have an explicit test for it. Why? Because you could have a constructor that takes in a parameter and then checks that this parameter is not null, and then the other constructor does something else. User ID null cannot be happen because you can. I don't think I will ever have a session where you don't have a refresh token. And then a test avoids that is active until null. That's also not allowed. So that you assert that thrown by. Come on, AI. that's gone. You can shine now. Ah, yes, and I have to first put everything outside because otherwise the getter might cause an exception. Final. ID equals user ID. Where is my refresh token? Ah, yeah, okay, because he now thinks. Fill it in. Okay, so there should be a no pointer exception. Then I can just copy and paste this, and I can here say session.getRefresh token, and this becomes null. Ta-da! And all of this should now work. Do fine. It's really annoying. I can't run my tests. I have to do that. Okay, no refresh token. Active until. Okay, and this is something that actually what I probably want to do, or how say like this. The thing is that if you go to look at the JWT service, and that's actually a very interesting part, is that here I say my refresh expiration that it's 30 days valid. Access token is 7 minutes valid. The refresh expiration, I'm not sure where it actually comes in. Yes, this is really stupid. I generate this with AI as well, and so actually it would create a refresh token that was also like a full JWT token, and I'm not sure that actually really exists. I don't think so. I don't think this is something you typically would do. Like, I mean, why would you have a full JOT token as a refresh token where it's just you say like, ah, yeah, this is a subject with a name and whatever is issued, add and expired, and sign it again as well and compact it and blah blah blah. I don't think I've seen this being done quite often. I think most people would agree that the only thing you do is this part. You just create a random string, so this can all go away. And then in this case, you actually don't even care about a refresh expiration. It is not up to him to decide how long it should be valid, although for the access token it is, because it actually gets in there as well. And this becomes a token service, so maybe it's not that bad, it does. But then again, I mean, like a session, the session info, you can actually say like, is it a refresh token that is valid for so long, or is it a session that is active until a certain amount of time? The session remains active. You can refresh your session until with using this token, but I mean, that's it. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the whole expiration thing to here in my session, create it automatically saying like, oh yeah, it will be now plus 30 days and whatever and stuff. And nice. Well, now plus 7 days, I think it is. But so here, what you may want to do, say, like, oh, active until, all this should always be in the future. Should it not? Well, not if it comes from the database. I mean, it could, of course, be that your session is already expired. You still want to create the object and then just say, like, oh, is expired. And then you probably methods that says, like, is expired. Easy. You can do the same thing, of course, with database stuff, where you can say, like, oh, give me the active session for this refresh token. That's not expired yet, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, it should be done and blah 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 and stuff, and then you get one, and you can do it like as well. But then you put more logic in your database and your queries, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I also discovered that you could do quite a lot of checks on your database as well, regarding like minimum things and whatever. But I'm not so sure it's a good idea to put all that logic in the database. On the one hand, I like it because then if you do want to do something manually, then it's also fine. But it's a bit itchy. I feel that you rely so much on your database for your application consistency. So I'm not too big of a fan of it. So in here, I would definitely just, I'll give me the refresh token, give me the session with this refresh token, you would get it. And then you can check, is it actually still an active session, yes or no. I mean, there'll always be a race condition. I mean, a session that is active now does not mean that it's active going to be, it's still going to be active in like a second from now. I don't care if it's like a second, if it comes down to a second, like you'll never be able to fix something like that. But that's fine. But I'm gonna leave it like that, and then I will work on it a bit offline. Make sure that I have my setup working again because it's really annoying. I actually can't do anything. And then next time I will show you a bit more how this whole things. So this is fine. How it all came together. I hope to see you next time. Bye.